those documents are 100% encrypted. What that's going to do is if anybody, any Tom, Dick, and Harry comes over to my desk, sits down, and happens to get into my mainframe, he can sit down and look at my email. They're not going to be able to look in and see other people's information. That's the most important thing. So any of our clients can feel very secure about that. The other main thing is that we do our best to meet in person every now and again. If we do and we collect sensitive information, again, W-2s, pay stubs, tax returns, that information, once uploaded into our secured system, is shredded 100% of the time. We do not keep paper files. Paper files are
so 90s.
Yeah, it's very 90s, number one, yeah. And it's dangerous. Anybody can walk into anybody's office.
So 90s.
And they can grab information. So we're very careful about that. So that's really the front end. So I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Well, what you said is absolutely integral in terms of data encryption. So that's the number one way that things are being, identities are being stolen right now. And I will tell you that I know there are numerous banks that don't follow those same protocols. So kudos to Annie Mac, and I know that from working with you guys that you are taking those types of steps to protect people's identities, because it's just too easy. If you're not using encrypted softwares to protect emails, the number one thing happens, people attach their social security card, their driver's license, or the 1003, which has all the information that I would need to assume someone's identity in 50 seconds.
Absolutely.
Jeff, you are a branch manager for
Yes, I am,
AMEC?
yep.
So what's that process? So someone applies, walk me through from all the way to closing, and the who has that information and how is it handled?
Well, first and foremost, all our employees are background checked, screened to make sure there's no, issues in their, character as far as handling those documents. The loan officer, the processors will have access to those files. Everything stays at the office. Everything's locked down at the end of the night. As far as any type of cleaning people coming in, it's all monitored and supervised. There's no one in that office that we don't know about. There's security cameras, as well as, basically we have obviously an ADT system that lets us know who come in and out of the building with, some key cards and things like that. So, you apply for the mortgage. You could do it online, in person, like Anthony just said, and everything from start to finish is monitored over. Make sure nothing else is leaked out to the client. Everything's always encrypted via email or our secured server, which we use to basically process the entire file from origination to the funding to the secondary markets. So everything's basically under lock and key.
From the consumer's perspective, the buyer, how about the settlement agent across the country, the title company or the bank attorney? Do they have access to that information, or does it stop short of actually getting to the closing?
It'll stop short of getting to the closing. They'll have access, obviously, to the closing documents, but they're obviously pre-screened and approved by our company. They need to have proper insurances to do business with us and things like that. So there's nothing that we have had an issue with so far.
I want to comment from these three gentlemen. What about this new TRID that's come in? We've heard about that, but what kind of extra layer of identity protection does that afford, if any?
Go ahead, take that.
Yeah, TRID's really good news for the consumer. What they're going to find first and foremost is the same information that they've already gotten previously is going to be delineated in a more clear-cut, condensed manner. So instead of looking at 5 or 6 disclosures to find the same information, you're going to have 2 disclosures to get that information. So it's really going to make it easy to sit down with your attorney, with your loan officer, and go through things. The biggest thing why this is going to be important for any consumers, they're going to have a good 3 days prior to closing to view their settlement statement. This is important because all the charges, whether it be third-party, bank fees, title, taxes, they're going to have an opportunity to sit, digest that information for 3 days, ask questions, have those answered, and be able to go into closing really with a clear head. From a perspective of identity theft, really nothing is going to change from that standpoint. This is, kind of a business as usual from our standpoint, but just more simpler disclosure to the client.
I just want to mention too, Starbucks on the open public Wi-Fi is not the place to sit and review these documents. If you're saving stuff to your mobile device, you have to make sure that your mobile device, you have to enhance the security features, and whether it's a notepad or even your phone. Most of us do everything on our phones nowadays, but we don't take the time to enhance the security features. Our phones come with very, very little antiviral and malware software. The good news is there's actually a bunch of free apps that are out there you have to always go to one of the stores, whether it's the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. Never download an app unless it's from one of those stores. And you have the major players, Norton, Avast. They all offer free softwares that you can download onto your phone that will give your mobile device an enhanced security feature. But again, if you're on an open public Wi-Fi, you should not be doing your mobile banking, and you should not be reviewing sensitive documents.
Okay, so I have a question. So now let's say someone's identity has been tampered with, and they come to you for a mortgage.
Yep.
Can they get a mortgage?
They can, and the way that they would do that, unfortunately, we've had situations like this before where someone's identity was stolen. One of the things we train our people to do as mortgage professionals is to review their credit report, and that includes a line-by-line review of every trade line. And there have been a few situations in my 15-year career where we'll go through something and we'll find, let's say, a Visa card that the customer has no idea about. That Visa card is delinquent, it's maxed out, and it's been that way for 2 years. And as a result, their credit score has plummeted. So yes, we work very closely with our credit providers. We could provide information back to them, basically stating that this information or this credit line is not our borrower's. We can get them removed and get their credit rescored.
And how long does something like that take?
We've been able to do it inside of a few weeks, depending upon
Really?
depending upon the information we get from the client. Absolutely.
Paul, speak to that, please.
Well, this is
repair and restoration.
This is so important because I will tell you, we've been doing this for 10 years, and we just had a case where one of our clients had come to us, and they were actually their status was deceased, and it actually took us about 6 months. We ended up suing 2 out of the 3 credit bureaus because they refused to change the status of this gentleman's, situation. He's alive and well, and we had notarized documents and all this stuff. So again, working with a trusted lender like Annie Mac gives you the ability to do certain things that other people can't do. So the rapid rescore being one of them, there it is, the situation's here, we have notarized documents, this guy's alive, he's well, and 3 to 5 business days you could do the rapid, and maybe it takes you a couple of weeks as opposed to a couple of months or a couple of years. The average person that's not working with some type of professional banker or credit monitoring service spends about 2 years trying to undo the damage that has been done from fraud.
Do your underwriters, gentlemen, do your underwriters understand that? I mean, Anthony's quick answer is they can, but what happens when your credit score plummets or your accounts are clearly not yours? Do they have any kind of tolerance or leeway to accept the fact that someone is alive, and or even these loans were not theirs?
Yeah, I mean, one of the best things about Annie Mac is we have make sense underwriting. We do have a secondary market that we do answer to, but what we actually have is Fannie Direct and Ginnie Mae, which actually allows our underwriters to write to those guidelines and make sense decisions. We have a credit committee that gets together. We'll make a decision on a tweener type of file, maybe a credits challenge, maybe something like you just said.
What's an example of that as far as credit scores are concerned?
Maybe a lower credit score,
which is
580.
Wow.
To on an FHA side, or 620 and above, like 620 mark for a Fannie Mae or a traditional mortgage type thing. But they actually have the ability to sit down and say, okay, we think this borrower has the capacity to pay, and we feel comfortable lending to them, at our low rates. So we do have situations that come up like that. So the underwriters are on board with that philosophy as well.
Okay, I'm going to switch gears a little bit here. I had a situation, Paul, that just happened to me just this last week. I had a doctor's office that left a message at my home saying that I had scheduled an appointment that I did not schedule, and I called them to make sure that no one was using my identity, and the girl who answered the phone said, "Oh no, you don't have to worry about that because identity theft in the medical field is not very common, and we tie everything back to your date of birth." Obviously, she's wrong, I know. So maybe you can help me out with that, and maybe you can help her out, or anyone else.
One of the startling statistics to me is that over 50% of all debt on credit reports is actually medical debts, and most of them are in collections because you have third-party billing companies that are not communicating with doctors, hospitals. They're not verifying the information before they put it on credit reports. The good news is that the FICO, the Fair Isaac Corporation that generates our credit scores, came up with a different system and scoring system and algorithm that takes out medical collections from the credit score, and it's FICO 09. The problem with that is it'll probably be about 10 years before the banks adopt the new scoring system. Most of us are still using FICO 04, so that was about 11 years ago. But in the interim, when we talk about, when the guys from Annie Mac looking at the credit reports, most consumers don't look at their credit reports enough. And if you don't know what's on your credit report, then how are you ever going to deal with this situation? And if you're in the market for buying a home or renting or whatever it is, you should be monitoring your credit reports. You should be doing it all the time, on a regular basis now. And I say unfortunately because you have to pay for a good service.
Right.
The free services that are out there are just not worth it. You get what you pay for. So you have to spend, about $10 a month to do it. But we call it closing assurance, because it might not be you. You might be paying all your bills on time, but you could have a medical collection that pops up on your credit report. Let's say they followed through with this appointment. Someone had stolen your identity, and a lot of times that's what happens. People aren't stealing IDs to necessarily take over your bank account. They're stealing IDs to have medical procedures done, and they're not going to pay for it, or they pay very little towards it, and they don't wind up paying the bills and the balance, and then the collection winds up on your credit report. And if you find that out a month before you're supposed to close on a home, it could be very difficult to get that deal done.
Right, I would imagine that would be the case. So let me ask you this, why is it that doctors and dentists are asking for so much information when you walk into the office? Are we supposed to be giving them that information?
No, you have the ability to opt out of giving, especially your Social Security number. And doctors, a lot of them do it because that's how they've always done it. And a lot of them now do it because of billing and collections. They want to make sure that they have your Social Security number. But at the end of the day, that's your Social Security number, and you do not have to give it out. We spoke before the show about school districts. My son going into kindergarten, why did they need his Social Security number? And if I wasn't the owner of Better Qualified, I would have just given his Social Security number. But school districts, unfortunately, today are selling that data to third-party companies for marketing.
Wow, that could be dangerous.
It's very dangerous. So if you're registering a child for school, do not give the Social Security number. If you're going to see a new doctor, don't give them your Social Security number. You don't have to. So if they absolutely refuse to work with you, you could have a case where you might want to file a complaint with the FTC or the CFPB. But I would also maybe consider going to a new doctor if they're not willing to take you without using your Social Security number.
Well, how would they know that you're you? I mean, let's go back to this situation. What if somebody walked in and said they were me? How would they know?
They wouldn't know. So unless they do at least a secondary authentication, where, whether it's biometrics, fingerprints now are being used all over the place on our phones. But if they just take the documents for face value, they have to assume that it's you. So without a secondary authentication, this is why...
So basically we have nothing in place to protect us.
That's what I said before. There really is no such thing as identity theft protection. When you look at, we talked about data breaches, last year, 2014. The average time from the infection, the virus, where it's getting in the POS systems or something like that, it's 8 months before it's detected.
Wow.
So no one can protect us. You just had the Department of Homeland Security, the Office of Personnel Management. Our government, the federal government, can't protect our data. We, as consumers, have to do some level of I don't want to say protection, but we have to do some level of activity, proactive stuff on our part to help lower the risk of becoming a victim. And folks, it happens every 2 seconds. Someone becomes a victim of fraud and identity theft every 2 seconds in this country.
Wow, that's startling.